What is up, everybody, and welcome to FLW Videos. In today's episode, we will be performing a deeper dive on Mewtwo in Pokemon Go. In the past, I've already done a deep dive, but anytime we see some type of major change related to the Pokemon, I end up doing a follow-up. So Mewtwo's going to get one today because of the move Psystrike. You may be curious as to how good it is versus the other move Psychic that it has. We're going to be talking about those performance, putting them up head-to-head to figure out what's going to be the best move. And this video is going to work a little bit different than I normally do since it is a deeper dive. I'm actually going to start off with one major tip that you really do need to consider. It's going to be that during the Ultra Bonus event, you're going to automatically get Psystrike on all of your Mewtwo's. The major benefit to this is that you are going to have a fairly solid moveset that is the typing that you want with that Psychic typing, but you're not going to have to use any TMs to be able to get it. That's going to be a major consideration for myself because in the past when you end up catching a Mewtwo, if you got Ice Beam but you wanted Psychic, there's no telling how many TMs you were going to end up using just because the moveset is so vast. Go ahead and take a look at this. We are just adding so much to Mewtwo. Mewtwo is what I would consider the Swiss Army knife in Pokemon Go, behind something like a Mew, for example. But you're seeing so many moves. Go ahead and add Psystrike to that legacy moveset. This is insane, but it is definitely something to consider as we go throughout these raid results. I'm excited about this. I wanted to get that kind of prelude out of the way, so let's go ahead and jump into some of the results. Mewtwo with a max CP of 4,178. Mewtwo is a pure Psychic type Pokemon. Taking a look at the stats, this will include all of the Generation 5 Pokemon. You're going to see that its best stat is that attack stat at 300. That is absolutely solid. Its worst stat being its defense stat, but it does have an overall ranking of 20th in Pokemon Go, at least related to the stats. So now that we have covered the stats, I actually have 3 sets of raid results that I want to cover briefly. We're going to be taking a look at a set where we go up against a fighting type Pokemon, a poison type Pokemon, and then a very interesting situation that I think is going to highlight my point that I want to make overall. So as you can see, as far as the first set of raid results are concerned, when we end up going up against the Machamp, you are seeing that in this case, Psychic ends up being in front, but as far as the time to win is concerned, it's about a 2-second difference. In the second simulation, versus a Muck, which is a pure poison type Pokemon, we end up seeing that Psystrike is actually able to take the #1 spot in this case, but as far as the time to win is concerned, I mean, we're talking about 0.2 seconds, so it ends up being very tight in that situation. So we end up seeing kind of like some back and forth between the two. I thought it would also be a really interesting idea to go up against a Pokemon that is weak to Psychic. It is also weak to maybe some other types that Mewtwo has, such as the Ice typing, Fire typing, and then of course Psychic typing, and that's going to be versus a Venusaur. So when you go up against a Venusaur, the absolute best moveset that you ended up using actually ends up being the move Ice Beam. And Ice Beam is not even a stat benefited move when you are using it with Mewtwo. So that ends up bringing up a kind of interesting point related to Mewtwo, and then of course its overall moveset. And that stems down to the fact that Mewtwo has some very good moves in Pokemon Go, but when you take a look at its Psychic moves such as Psychic and then now Psystrike, it can still get beat despite the fact that it has Stab in other cases like we saw with Venusaur. And this happens because these two moves are kind of in the middle of the pack when you talk about the best Psychic type moves. Go ahead and take a look at this chart. Technically, Psystrike looks so good on paper, but in actual performance, they end up being very, very, very close to each other. And as you saw with the simulations, they kind of went back and forth. But I think what's happening is no one really thinks about like how bad these moves are just because Mewtwo's still able to perform as like a #1 attacker on that Psychic typing, but that's really because Mewtwo is so good. It really has nothing to do with the moveset. To be honest, the moveset is actually what is holding Mewtwo back as far as its overall performance is concerned. Not meaning the breadth of it, like the width of it, but really just the moves that it has. If it were to have something equivalent to a Future Sight, Mewtwo would be absolutely OP, but no, it's stuck with a different set of moves that are just kind of like middle of the pack, which really does kind of make it stabilized a little bit more if you want to look at it that way as far as the bounce is concerned. But anyways, this is definitely something to consider. And something else is, if you do have yourself a Psystrike Mewtwo, I would not recommend opening up a secondary charge move for it unless you wanted to do something like Ice Beam. That would be the only one, like we saw with that Venusaur result coming in second in that case. Definitely consider that. I do personally want to go ahead and hold on to that Psystrike Mewtwo, save my TMs, know that it is very close in performance to Psychic, and hopefully I'll end up getting a super high IV. Hopefully you will too. Hopefully it will end up being shiny as well. A little bit of a cool story, or a little bit of a backstory, is that my first 100% IV legendary Pokemon was actually a Mewtwo for me. That was the most nervous I have ever been catching a Pokemon in Pokemon Go. That 100% IV, ended up catching it, and then of course TM'd it over to Psychic so I could use it that way. So I was so excited about that. In this case, I hope everyone has that same type of luck this time around. Of course, make sure to follow me on Twitter. That way you can send me some pictures and stuff if you get it. Hopefully you did enjoy this episode. It kind of answers your questions, and we'll see you next time. If you want to develop a deeper connection, I would highly recommend you to check out Patreon. We've got a lot of really cool things going on over there. Check out all of these supporters that we have. We are almost up to 100. We are also posting some special content, some behind the scenes work. And if that is the type of thing that interests you, I would highly recommend you to check it out.